This week, Glittergirl looked out and spotted a scrappy situation. Having invested in a printer, an electronic die cutting machine, or both, many scrappers put significant amounts of craft budget towards these versatile tools. How can we ensure they don't go dusty, and instead enhance the scrappy stash we already own? Glittergirl, can you complement the contents of the crafty closet?
Of course I can. What I've been finding lately is that I use my Silhouette, my digital die cutter, a lot more if I adopt a technique that a few different garden girls and plenty of scrapbookers use, and that's instead of cutting things for each individual project, it's to take a selection of different cutting files that are your style and you know that you'll use and cut them all out at once, so that perhaps when you buy a set of files, you download a set of files, or just when you're feeling like you want to do something creative but you don't have time to make a whole page, you cut out a few different selections and then you keep them on your workplace, on your work surface, somewhere where you can see them, be that just on the desk or in a little box or whatever it's going to work for you. And you have them out all the time, just like the rest of your supplies. This works a lot better for me because what I don't like to do is to go back to my computer in the middle of a layout. For me, when I make a page, it's all about getting away from the computer and doing just the creative hands-on bit. So what I've been doing is when I download printables, I go ahead and print them out straight away. I've had this printed for about a week and I love it, but I haven't used it yet. And likewise, I have a variety of different things that I cut out. Now, I often do my printables on texture cardstock, but I did this particular set on smooth cardstock and really liked how the colors worked that way. And so I went ahead and did the cutting files on white smooth cardstock as well. And this was a little different for me because in the past I've tended to take a nearly solid type of pattern paper, the kind where you just have a single color and maybe a small simple pattern that repeats across it, and that has worked. But this time, because of all this kind of paint inspired stuff on the printable, I wanted to be able to customize the cutouts as well. So I don't know what color they're going to be just yet. So these are both from the two-piece store, designed by a lovely garden girl, Vilna Furstenberg, and you can find them if you click the supply link below this video. If you're watching at YouTube, you'll find all the supplies for today's project listed below at 2 Peas in a Bucket. Okay, so I'm going to be using these printables, these cut files, and one big picture to make an interactive layout today. And I've printed this at A4 size. You can see it's just about 12 inches wide, but not quite. And to make this interactive page, I need 3 different sheets of paper. Now, they could be all the same pattern paper, or they can be 3 different pattern papers. I need one for the background, and likewise, they don't have to be patterned. They could certainly be solid colors. I need one for the background that's going to be my actual 12 by 12 page. And then I need 2 to make the interactive section, because what I want to do is include a big photo, but also quite a lot of journaling, and it's going to be more personal journaling, so I don't want it to be all on show. I want to be able to hide it away, and I don't want it to be really hidden. I just want it to be something that it takes a tiny little bit of effort to read, so that if you're just passing through my album and you're not really interested in reading, you're not going to bother to sit there and read it. It's not going to stare at you and you're going to feel awkward. But I don't want it to be really hard to read either. So it's a nice in the middle kind of piece, and just gives me a lot more page room so that I don't have to choose. Do I want lots of journaling or do I want a big photo? I want both. So that's what I'm going to do with 3 sheets of pattern paper. This gray pattern paper is going to be my 12 by 12 background. So all I needed to do was cut the backing of the branding strip off of this one. That is from Echo Park's Head Over Heels collection. The other side has little tandem bicycles and hearts. Okay, so I have my gray, and I'm going to use this fading so that the darker bit is at the bottom of the page. Then I have 2 more pattern papers. One of them needs to be cut to just cover the back of the photo. So that's what I'm going to use, the cloud paper. That's from the Style Board collection from Crate Paper. And what I need to do is see how it's going to work when I flip it upside down, because the photo is going to flip up and include more space underneath. So what I'm going to do is put that pattern paper so it's upside down and go ahead and adhere the photo to the paper. And then I'm not cutting a mat here, I'm just cutting it to the exact size of the photo. So when this photo is flipped up, then I'm going to have this pattern paper showing at the top. Now, the next pattern paper is my pink ombre here, and this one is from Crate Paper's Love Notes collection. This one is going to be a matte, and I want it to be a little bit longer than the photo so that I have the ability to fold it and make this interactive bed. So what I'm going to do is just follow the pattern really, and I'm going to cut it off at the bottom of the pink and not worry about the red. But if your pattern doesn't give you a nice little magic line to follow, you just want about an inch to an inch and a half of extra pattern paper on one side or the other. I've also trimmed just the teeniest little bit off the side so that you can still see the gray frame around the edge, but because the photo is so big it doesn't allow for much in the way of trimming on the edge. And then you need to score the side that has the extra bit to make this a folding bit of trickery. So I've just used my scoring blade on my paper trimmer so that I have now something that can work to help flip this up to the top. Now this one on my particular layout is going to go actually onto the page. I'm just going to add a little bit of black ink to help it work with that gray background, but this top edge isn't going to show. So I'm adding my adhesive on everything except that strip right there for now. And this will go at the bottom of my layout. I think maybe not quite that far down on the page. I want to add a little room so that I can have some embellishment at the bottom. And then this piece is going to be adhered in between these two layers. So with the adhesive that I use, this is really easy to just pull it apart and then piece it back together. But if you're using an adhesive that doesn't pull apart, then by all means make sure that you do that step before you've added anything that's going to make it impossible to put this together. And I use a little more adhesive on pieces like this because I'm going to put this on the outside of the page protector probably, and this way it just makes sure that everything is nice and secure, even though it's going to be handled a little bit more than something in the page protector. So I'm just pushing the pattern paper layer so that it's right up against the fold, and then push that down over the top, and then the photo over the top of that. And now I have this piece that comes up like this, and I have my big expanse of pattern paper to write. So what I'm going to do is start with my embellishment on this side of the page first, and then I'll worry about making the inside work as well. I have my cut apart pieces, and like I said, they're all white, so I'm going to start by figuring out where they're going to go, and then I'll decide, do I want to change the color of any of them? I could use ink, mist, embossing powder, stamps, watercolor, gelatos, whatever comes to mind. So I'm going to figure out the placement first and then the coloring. I figured out where my tile is going to go, but I want to explain the thought process there because I did think maybe I need to put the title up here so that it's not on top of the photo. And in the end, I decided I like the title on top of the photo better. But there's a real reason that I decided to go along with that idea. That's because I have multiple photos from this particular day, and the other photos will appear in the same album. So I'm not completely worried about covering up a little bit of this picture. I think you can still see the meaning of the photo and everything. I've just covered up a little bit of the greenery. But if this were the only photo I had from this particular occasion, then I think I would have opted to keep the title up here. But since I know that the facing page and other pages in the album will have very similar photos from the same day, I'm okay with adding the title on top of the picture. That means I can add some things up here that are just for embellishment's sake. So I've cut out 3 of the printable cards, and I cut them down so that they had square edges rather than rounded edges. And I'm going to be tucking these into this kind of top corner in some sort of order so that I have this lovely space over here in this top corner that will have this colorful embellishment. And where I've already adhered everything here, I can just cut these things down a little bit and cheat and tuck them underneath, and then I don't need to pull up the whole thing. Now, as far as coloring these, I've decided there's going to be one more word here, and I'm going to do that with some aqua thickers. And so I'm going to do one line of the title in pink and one line in aqua. These are the thickers I'm going to use. And that's because aside from the gray and the black of the outfit that I'm wearing and the green of the grass in the background, the 2 colors that jumped out to me were the pink from the flowers in the tree and the turquoise or aqua shade of my nail varnish. So I just thought I would pick up on those 2 colors, and that started to be working right with the patterns I'd already chosen, since I had the pink pattern paper and the turquoise pattern paper from the clouds that are on the reverse of this, so that will match, and then this should pull it all together. I think I'll put the rainbowy one in the middle so that the 2 with more blue are kind of bookends there. And so I'm going to paint these with some mist and a paintbrush. So the second line is going to be in the aqua, the first line in pink, and all pretty simple really. So I'm just going to shake up the mist and then paint it right onto the paper, and then let it dry and stick it onto the layout. Really, really simple. My letters are all dry, so I've started attaching them here. I'm just going to finish the bottom line of the title with the yo-yo thickers. And with this title, the title is coming from what I wanted to journal inside on this section that's going to open up. And that is because this is going in my album that kind of goes week by week. I didn't stick to that completely strictly, but it vaguely goes week by week until baby arrives. And I realize that baby has not arrived in this picture. So I know the title might be a little imperfect, but what I wanted to write about on this page was that this was the time and that everything seemed a bit more real, that it seemed more like a baby than an idea. So the title makes sense with all that writing in place. I hope that makes a little sense there too. So thickers there, and then I have my turquoise heart that's going to go here, but I want to dress it up just a little bit, so I'm going to use some embossing powder and a polka dot background stamp and just print the polka dots with some Versamark ink. And then use some aqua embossing powder that's a good match to the thickers so that I just have a little bit of that color and a different texture on top. So can heat emboss this. Just grab a bit of scrap paper to put underneath. And it really didn't matter what stamp I chose because the outline of the heart is small enough that it's not going to show much definition to a pattern at all. But I just wanted something that would emboss part of it but not the whole thing. So something like polka dots works well for that, but I'm not worried about it coming out completely perfect or anything like that. I just want a little bit of a different treatment to the heart than all the letters, so I wouldn't necessarily even need a stamp at all. Now I'm ready to add my embellishment up here at the top with my printable cards, and I said that I was going to cut them a little bit to cheat so that I have this bit that I don't have to take up all of that to tuck underneath. I just need to tuck under a little bit, but it also means that I can use them again on the layout because I can take the pieces that I'm cutting off at the bottom and move them down here so they'll become the piece that you use to open this up. So I'm not going to do anything too fancy. Just cut a little bit off the bottom of each one. And those are going to appear at the bottom of the page. And now it should be pretty easy to tuck these underneath here and still have room at the top. I think I want the rainbow one on top, so just place these two first. And then this one, I'll just put some pop dots at the top. But I'll still use just normal flat adhesive at the bottom, and that'll give me a little bit of dimension between the three. Then I can use these three pieces down here at the bottom of the page to create a little piece that will, it just means that when you open this section, it will be easier to open it rather than having to hang on to the photo itself. You can open it by using the paper. So since these two have text on them already and this one doesn't, I'm going to use that one to write my open or read. And I'm going to use the big Pebbles letter stamp for that and then adhere them to the piece that's going to come up. And I can actually maybe just tuck it in between the photo and that pattern paper that's behind so that it'll be nice and easy and secure. I just did a couple little practice ones on some scratch paper so that I could get a feel for where the ink might go a bit wrong. And then I'm going to add these pieces in between the two layers here, and it should end up with something easy to work with. And then I have my little open here tab. Do you want to make sure that you keep the adhesive up at the top of the piece so that you don't have too much to cover up on the other side here, but I do have a little bit there, and I can just cover that up with some more scraps of paper and use this to start a little bit of an embellishment cluster on the other side. I can take that from the same printable because they're going to be the same width, so I can just start cutting little pieces. Line up those top edges. See which one it's a better fit for. This one. And bring it down onto this part of the page. Now that's all covered from both sides. And I can start to add my journaling, and then I'll come back to add little finishing embellishments to give it a bit of texture and all that goodness. So I have added my journaling inside and a little bit of embellishment down here at the bottom. I've left quite a lot of open space here, and that's for two reasons. One, I just thought there's an awful lot of writing there. It doesn't need a huge amount of extra stuff to distract from the words. But also, because this is an ongoing album and I may get to the end and think, actually, there's a few more photos I'd like to fit in, I don't mind leaving a few spots where I could come back in and add a few extra pictures. I think this design works well either way. By the way, I did cut off most of the kind of the bigger cloud pattern here. And there's a reason I did that. I wanted to have the writing space so that this would run straight into that and not have quite such a jarred line with the writing. But also because I wanted to save this part to go on the facing page so that I'll have something that coordinates a little bit. So that's what's inside, and then I've added a little bit here and here. I'm skipping over the embellishment today because I really want to show you how to do the page protector so that this can open in your album. But just one little thing I wanted to finish with the embellishment. You'll see I didn't pay a lot of attention to where I stopped writing here or embellishing, and I have this little bit from the very bottom there that still shows. So what I've done is just cut two more little pieces from my printable sheet so that I can tuck them into this little row where I had the others, and I'll be able to cover all of that up. So that's a really easy fix if you find that you have something from another layer that's showing through and that wasn't your intention. So now that's all finished. So now I'm going to grab my page protector, and there's a couple different ways you can do this. I'm going to do it so that this bit is actually outside the page protector, and that doesn't bother me. I've made sure that all these elements that are on top here are really secure and won't have any problems with them falling off. That does mean I've added extra glue and just made sure that every little bit of the surface is covered. And but you can also do it so that you use two page protectors, one for this element and one for this element. It takes a little bit more work, and it's a little easier if you start your process knowing that you're going to do it that way, because you can just sew an extra pocket onto the layout itself rather than doing the folded paper to make your pocket. So I'm going to show you the way that I'm going to put it in my album, which is really, really simple. So you're going to need your page protector for your album, and you need to know which way this page is going to face in your book. So my page is on this side with the facing page over here. Go ahead and put it inside the page protector, the whole thing, just to start. Okay, and then you need to find this line where you want this element, wherever it's joined to the page, so wherever the hinge is on your interactive element, and then you want to just make a score mark along that line. So what I'm using is my paper piercer. You can use just the edge of your scissors or a blunt pencil. You don't want to poke through the page protector, you want to just make a dent in it without denting your layout underneath. Okay, now take the page out and you're left with that line that you've just drawn. And if you have any trouble with making the line straight, just use a ruler when you make the line. It's not a problem. Then you're going to need to put something inside here that will keep you from cutting all the way through. So that can be some chipboard, some cardboard, some cardstock, whatever it is that you can put inside the page protector to protect the other side. And then cut this line with an X-Acto knife, with your scissors, whatever it is that is easy for you to control. And then you're going to have just a cut through one side of the page protector, and you don't want it to go through the seams on either side. So here I do use a ruler just to make it a little easier, and then just cut across the line. And hold the ruler in place to see if you've cut all the way through. Now with an X-Acto knife or a craft knife, you likely get it in one cut. There's a reason why I'm using my scissors, and that's because I'm really not very good with a craft knife. And the other option I sometimes use is a rotary cutter. I'm a little bit better with that, but I didn't have it to hand, and my scissors will do just fine. There we go. So now I can take this out, and I'm going to put my layout back into my page protector, but this time it's just going to feed into the page a little bit differently. So I want the bottom of the page to go all the way into the page protector. It is a little fiddly, but you just have to do it once and then you're done. This layer is going to come out on top here. And then take the whole thing into the page protector bit by bit. The hinge itself will always take a little bit of making sure nothing is caught, but it does eventually fit in there in the right place. And then your layout is all protected here, but everything on this panel can be opened and read really carefully. Now, what I had done was to make sure that all of these pieces were really well adhered, but I'm starting to see where this needs a little bit more adhesive, so I'm just going to come back and add a little bit more to that. I think that's probably because where I'd done these with the mist, the texture of the paper goes a little bit different once it's absorbed all the liquid, and it probably means that there's a few spots where my adhesive just pulled away from the letters because maybe I didn't let them dry quite long enough. So I will make sure that I get all of that stuck really, really fast to the page so that it's not going to move. And then that's how it will go in my album, so it's nice and easy to read everything. And yet all these little pieces are still in the page protector, and that is how I'll finish. Okay, so and the embellishments that I added, I know I skipped over them today to show you a little bit of a different element of the page. I used these stickers from the Amy Tangerine +1 collection, and the print shop wood veneer hearts, some enamel dots, which I'm nearly out of now, from Dear Lizzie, and of course the printables from 2Ps and the cut files from 2Ps, and a couple little paper clips here. And I think that's pretty much it with the embellishments. This one is a Maggie Holmes die cut for crepe paper, and there again repeated the cut files from the front. Same shape, so I still have a few of those hearts left, and I cut them in a few different sizes, so I'm going to keep those on my desk and use them in a few upcoming projects. And that is how I made sure that I will actually get more for my investment when I have cut files and printables, is to make sure I go ahead and cut them or print them straight away while I'm absolutely in love with them, and then not to pack them away, but to keep them out on my desk. So that is my challenge to you. And actually, since anything goes here, really, we can have two challenges. You can either put your printables or cut files to work, especially if you have something that you've purchased but not used, not printed out, or not cut yet. Or if you want to try an interactive layout with plenty of journaling or photo space, then give that a try. And of course, it can be adapted to any sort of size on the page, so it doesn't need to be a giant photo if you'd rather work with something else. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.
Join us next week for the continuing adventures of Glitter Girl and the ongoing mystery of the scrapbooker behind the mask at twopeasinabucket.com.